Hello, everybody. I just wanted to introduce you to my husband, Chris David. He's a chiropractor with a fake smile. um, I asked him to do this video with me to talk a little bit about insulin resistance. I've had an opportunity recently to share my weight loss journey, and he's one of the biggest information sources that I've had in diet information and helping me with diet issues. As you can tell, we have two completely different goals. My goal is to lose weight, and he's always trying to gain it in muscle. But the other day, on Sunday, we went to the gym together, and I was thinking about some things that we'd been talking about on previous lives with a friend of mine regarding insulin resistance. And I know from listening to him talk, that in the bodybuilding world, bodybuilders sometimes take insulin even if they're not a diabetic. So my question to him was, if too much insulin, if somebody produces too much insulin and the body lays that down as fat, why do bodybuilders take insulin? Because they don't want fat. So this is where I'm going to let him take over and answer that question.
Wow, I didn't know I was going to do the whole thing. You had some questions. First of all, we got to start with the fact that everything in our body is hormonally driven. And where I'm coming from in this has to do with diet and exercise, is the hormones that are part of that. And what it comes down to is insulin and glucagon. So ultimately, or the most, the best case scenario for weight loss is you want insulin low and glucagon high, because what happens is when sugar's low, your liver puts out glucagon. So glucagon actually breaks down fat and amino acids and turns them into glucose. So this happens all the time. So there's always a certain amount of glucose always being put into the body or into the bloodstream. So on the opposite side of that is if you're taking in way too much, or if you're taking in any sugar or carbohydrates, then your insulin's going to be higher. Take in too much insulin. Now, too many carbs over a certain amount of time, too much insulin, and then your body becomes used to it, let's say, so it becomes insulin resistant. So in a bodybuilding standpoint, so what's the question?
So if too much insulin lays down fat in the body.
So okay, so now what insulin does, what the job of insulin is to actually take nutrients, your amino acids and nutrients, and drive them into the cell so the cell can work, so it can do what it's supposed to do. So so that certain amount of insulin is going to be used. So if you're at a certain level, that's why you take your blood sugars, because you want that level between, what do they say, 70 and 100,
120,
something like that. So if you're in that range, you're more than likely not going to lay down any fat. Now, anything above that, and you're not using, or you become, your body's has or over too much insulin, your body's going to start laying fat down.
So from the dog's coming in. So from a diet's perspective, so how does someone's diet affect? So for example, in a bodybuilding situation, you're give an example of what your diet's like.
Oh, well, I do 50 to 60% protein, 30 to 35% fat, and then the rest is carbohydrates. That's ultimately what I do. But I'll also increase or decrease those carbs according to what I'm burning or what I'm trying to do. If I want to put on more weight, I add carbs. again, and really what that's doing, not only is adding calories, but it's also raising the insulin, which is driving more nutrients into the cell.
So I read an article the other day, and I couldn't find it to tell you the name of the article, but it was based on a scientific study where they took two groups of mice. In the first group of mice, they fed the mice a high sugar diet, all sugar. In the second group of mice, they fed them a regular diet, but they did something to stop their insulin production. So in both groups of mice, their blood glucose levels went up. One of them because it had no insulin with a regular diet, and the other one because it was getting so much sugar. And the body couldn't keep up with, it didn't produce enough insulin to handle the sugar. But in group A, that had a high sugar diet and
no nutrients.
Yeah, no nutrients, but had the body produce what insulin it could. Those mice got fatter than the mice that had a healthier diet with no insulin,
Right.
even though their glucose levels were high. So explain that.
So it goes back to insulin resistance then. So lots of glucose creates an insulin resistant situation, so you're not driving, you don't have the ability to drive those nutrients into the cells.
Because there are no nutrients
There's no
in
nutrients.
the sugar.
Well, not only that, it's not going to drive anything anyway. Even if there was, it's the amount that's going to be driven is going to be less. So the inability for insulin to be created, it blocked their insulin.
Yeah, they did something to the second group to stop their insulin production.
Right.
So they weren't producing any insulin.
Any at all. So, and that group got...
The high sugar diet group got fatter than the second group. The second group...
That doesn't make sense, because that should be what happened.
But why did that happen is the question. If both of them have high glucose levels...
But you said it... Oh, I see what you're saying. Because there was a certain amount of nutrients
in the regular diet.
Right.
Versus the high sugar
Right.
diet.
And you're still going to have gluconeogenesis happening because... Which is glycogen levels will go higher. Glycogen levels will go up, which breaks down fat into glucose. And then you're going to have more glucose actually into the system. So then you're going to be able to, although you still you have to have insulin to drive those nutrients.
Well, maybe they had some insulin, but it slowed their production down.
I could see that. That makes sense. If they're able to block the pancreas from producing a certain amount, then that's what's going to happen. You're going to have basically you're going to have an increase in sugar that way, and you're still going to drive nutrients, and you have the nutrients, where in the other group they didn't have the nutrients, it's just pure sugar.
So that being said, with that little bit of science explanation behind it, he's really good with all the big words, so I have to kind of dumb it down to my level. But with all that science behind it, how important do you feel like a diet is in a person who has insulin resistance?
Well, it's everything. It means that, first, I hear all this stuff nowadays with the diets this and diets that, and a diet is, they put a diet as a fad, like this fad things. The diet is what you eat. If you eat tomatoes every single meal, that's your diet. Granted, that would probably be considered a fad diet, but whatever you're putting in your mouth is your diet. So let's just get rid of this hyperbole. A diet is what you take in. Mm-hmm. We're not talking about some fad diets or whatever. And I don't see keto as a fad diet. So I think it's very effective. And then you can always go back to adding carbohydrates and letting that system work the way that it's supposed to a little bit more. But it's very, very. In fact, with an insulin-resistant person, keto diet is awesome because now you're gonna decrease the amount of sugar in the body and let the cells get used to being able to uptake that insulin again and use it. And that way you're in gluconeogenesis, and have a higher glucon, like we said before.
And it has to pull from the fat
higher,
stores.
right? Glucagon higher, which means you're going to break down fat, turn it into glucose, and then burn that fat off.
Okay.
Although I'm not necessarily pushing the keto diet,
Right.
but that's the science behind higher glucagon, lower insulin. Means less
And
fat.
since we're on that subject, as you know, we've been married how long?
17 years.
And a half.
Okay, almost 18. That's still right.
So in those 17 years, you've been with me through thick and thin, literally.
Right.
How many diets have I tried?
Yeah, well, everything.
A lot.
And it's crazy with the keto. You usually did really, really well on that.
I mean, I've tried them all, and what was the one thing that you preached to me through all that? Just counting the macros, keeping my calories within a certain level, counting the macros.
Right.
So that is a diet that works for everybody, right? It's a universal diet.
Yeah.
So somebody like me that needs to lose weight can use that diet. And somebody like you that needs to gain weight can use that diet.
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess my point being, it's not about the diet, and we use that word as these fad diets that are out there. It's not about the Weight Watchers or I'm trying to think, Nutrisystem or keto or
Sure, and a lot of those
Atkins. There's all kinds of diets out there.
You can still be insulin resistant on some of those and not get a thing from it.
And they will work. They'll work for a time, but they're not sustainable. And that was the main thing. You want a healthy lifestyle, so you want to think about something that's sustainable that you can do from here till the end of time. But I guess my point being, it's more about the nutrients that you put in your body, the percentage of the macronutrients, the proteins, the carbohydrates, and the fats, and what your goals are.
And then always more calories in or less calories in, more, the less you take in and the more you burn, the more fat you're going to lose. But I do also believe that certain combinations, you can actually eat more in certain combinations and still get the fat burning effects.
That'll be another video later.
No, that's a diet thing.
So, I guess what the whole point of this video is the importance of making sure that what you put in your body is nutrient rich, good foods, not high sugar foods, because those high sugar foods are just going to be turned into fat cells, basically, right?
And also got to remember, even good foods, depending on what your sugars are, you can have fruits and vegetables till you're blue in the face, and all these dietitians are not putting down dietitians, but all the fruits and vegetables, but the fact of the matter is sugar, and fruits can be very detrimental to a diet situation and an insulin resistant situation.
So, within moderation.
Right.
All right. That's the David nugget for the day.
It's our take on it.
I don't know. We'll have to come up with a name for our little talks.
I guess so.
All right.
Nuggets to chew on.
All right. See you guys.